far as the BFR, I know you mentioned some of the benefits, if you will, but if we were going to go in a little bit deeper with that, because I am curious, because I did have Nick Licamelli, who is also an advocate of that. Maybe you can dive into some of the other benefits as far as if you're dealing with maybe like a joint issue, or where that kind of plays a role for maintaining muscle and perhaps even growing muscle, because obviously, the heavy lifting is, if we're looking at this like a continuum, that's kind of on one end of the continuum for a stimulus that is going to drive muscle growth. But where does this kind of fit? And yeah, as far as if someone's got a joint issue or some sort of injury that they need to work around, where could that kind of play a role?
Well, it plays a super important role. I first understood this concept of blood flow restriction training from an orthopedic surgeon named Dr. Jim Stray Gunderson. He's the head orthopedic doctor for the U.S. Olympic winter athletes mostly. And he understood this concept from a doctor in Japan who developed it some 50 years ago. And so Dr. Gunderson has been using it with the athletes for helping the body repair and recover from injury. Because when you're trying to recover from an injury, there's certain hormones like growth hormone helps your body to repair and recover, right, from injury, as does testosterone helps you repair and recover. So when you have an injury and you can't train, or your training is limited, when you use blood flow restriction training or the bands, and you, like I said earlier, you restrict the oxygen from a body part, your body overcompensates by releasing a greater amount of those resources that you need to recover, such as growth hormone, such as testosterone. The cells of the injured tissue have to repair also. And so there's an upregulation of protein synthesis when you restrict oxygen with BFR. So that also, that restriction of oxygen helps, or that upregulation of protein synthesis at the cellular level for repair happens. So if you have a shoulder injury, you not only get you're restricted in your blood flow below the bands, but everything upstream from that is also affected. There's a synergistic effect. So you get a chance by wearing bands. If you have a shoulder injury on your right side, you can wear bands on your left side. Well, you have a left band on the left arm, you have leg bands. So just by training and restricting, you get a systemic response, not just the area that you're restricting blood flow from, but the brain perceives a restriction or a lack of oxygen. So it releases these resources, growth hormone, testosterone, systemically. So the systemic response goes to the injured area. Even though you may not be directly training that area, it will benefit that area. If you are working around an injury, you're still able to train and get resources as if you're getting a full workout. If you go under, so the bands I use are by a company called Be Strong, and it's Dr. Jim Stray Gunderson's company. I reached out to them once I understood the benefit of the bands, and I had got a chance to interview him. I write for Iron Man magazine, so I write in every issue. And as a matter of fact, in the most current issue, Mike O'Hearn is on the cover, and I wrote an article in there about circadian biology. But a couple of issues ago, I wrote an article about blood flow restriction training and could it be the fountain of youth, and gave all of the science behind it after interviewing Dr. Gunderson. So, I don't know, do you guys have access to Iron Man magazine out there?
Oh yeah, I've tapped into a lot of the articles. I recently had Brandon Lirio on, and we were actually chopping it up with respects to Iron Man magazine, because he's also a writer, right, for Iron Man. So
yeah, spent some time with him over the weekend at the Olympia. It was great. But anyways, yeah, so the BFR bands are great in that regard. They've been super instrumental in my ability to not only train heavy, but recover quicker from my heavy training because of the extra resources I'm liberating by using the band and the last third of my session. So for instance, Mike Newman made a comment about my quads this year. He said he didn't have thighs like that last year. And so what I did this last year was I finished my leg training by doing leg extensions with the bands on my legs, 3 sets of 30. Again, the typical protocol is 3 sets of 30 with a 20-second rest in between. It's 90 reps in literally about 3 minutes. And so
these are intense sets, right? These aren't, you're just kind of going through the motions, right?
absolutely. You try to use a weight that you can get 30 reps with. That'll happen on the first set, but you have to kind of do drop sets with the bands on. I'll do a set of 30. So for instance, on the leg extension, my normal before, if not using bands, I mean, I may load the, every leg extension is different, but I may load that thing up with 250 pounds. Okay. On extensions, with when I use the bands, I'll do my first set with 60 pounds. I'm putting plates on
Okay.
on the machine. It's plate load. So I'll put 3 10s on. I'll do a set of 30, resting that 20 seconds. I would never be able to do another set of 30 with that 60 pounds. So I'll strip 20 pounds off, and I'll do my second set with 40 pounds. And I'll literally do my second set with 20 pounds on that. And it's a struggle to get 30 reps with that. So it's probably the toughest part of my workout is doing those drop sets with 3 sets of 30, no matter what body part I'm doing.
Sounds like there's quite an array of benefits here, because I could just, where my mind's going now, for someone who's getting ready for a contest and they're really low body fat percentage, maybe the risk for a potential injury starts to increase a little bit as you start to get lower and lower body fat percentage. I can see where BFR can have a potential place in someone's I guess routine as they're approaching a contest.
Well, listen, Dr. Gunderson, being the head of the U.S. Winter Olympic athletes, the way he trains them. So take a downhill skier, right? A downhill skier has a lot of G-forces. They have to have really strong quads. So their training for downhill is going to be potentially a lot of heavy leg press, a lot of heavy squatting to build the quads, right? But there's a risk of injury. And when you're squatting heavy. So what Dr. Gunderson does, he has those athletes on those lifts that are at risk for injury. Instead of squatting heavy, he'll have them use the bands to squat. So they can't go as heavy, but they get the same result.
Cool.
All the research shows that he's done is with the bands, even though you're not squatting or doing as heavy weight, you get a benefit at the strength level, at the circumference of muscle, for lack of a better term. The ability to build more muscle is enhanced, even though you're using less resistance. Where you think you'd need to use more resistance to break fibers down, and to do this, you get a greater muscle diameter using the bands without the heavy resistance. So it's safe to say that training for a show, you minimize the risk of injury and get the same result as if you're training heavier with all the other benefits.